I don't think you should try carnivore unless you have these four things going on. Number one, why. This is so important in everything, but it's especially important when you plan any type of change to societal norms around the way we eat. If you don't have a strong why, it's going to be very easy to cheat, to fall off the wagon, to constantly start, stop, be tempted, have a little cheat snack, tell yourself you're going to start the next day, whatever. But my philosophy is this: if you're not really ready and willing to commit to this, you don't have a strong enough why. And in so many cases, what that means is you're not sick enough, or you don't feel bad enough, or your weight is not bothering you enough to truly commit to this for a 30, 60, or 90-day stint. I say start with 30, ideally 90, because it typically takes 90 days in any type of situation. I don't care if it's a business goal, a sales goal, or a diet, weight, exercise, healing goal. 90 days is kind of the gold standard to truly test things. So when you're sick enough, when you feel unhealthy enough, when you feel overweight enough and frustrated, that's when you'll develop a strong enough why. And it could be that you have an illness or you've received a diagnosis, something like that. Maybe you want lasting weight loss. You've struggled with every other diet out there, yo-yo dieting, different things. The reality of it is, when you truly commit to a carnivore-based style of eating, it reduces hunger. There's no counting calories or macronutrients. And over time, you will cut out the food noise that leads you down the path to want to cheat, to be tempted, to be hungry, to constantly be thinking about what you're going to be eating next, which is going to be one of my 4 points that I'm going to make with you. Okay, so one of our goals with all of this is to cure those addictions that we have to sugar, to carbohydrates, to ultra processed foods, to seed oils, to so many of the things that we're addicted to that we may not even realize it, that aren't our fault. It's the way food's been programmed, scientifically designed. That's the problem when you eat food that's been made inside a plant or building versus what's truly out there in nature. Huge change. So without a strong enough why, you will have the tendency to give in to urges and temptations. Number 2, you have to have a willingness to set aside all of your previous beliefs about food, healthy foods, and what the body truly needs. We've been conditioned to follow the standard American diet, SAD. We've been conditioned to think that the doctor, the nurse, or somebody else outside of us has all the answers: the scientists, the headlines, the latest article, the peer-reviewed study, medical journals, and all of that. And over the last few years, if you've been awake and paying attention, you've noticed how so much of that has been debunked, how we've realized how politicized so much of our food supply is, how politicized so many of those medical journals and those so-called peer-reviewed scientific studies, and that you now have to pay to get into many of those medical journals, that they're not the gold standard anymore. And that's a whole different video and not for today. But that's where I do say it's so important that you have to be willing to set aside all your beliefs. When I decided to adopt the carnivore animal-based style of eating, I had to release every old belief that I used to have, that seeds were good for me and seed cycling would help with my hormones, and that too much red meat, might lead to cancer, or that I needed a certain amount of fiber that would come from fruits and vegetables, and just so many of the things that I bought into because mostly of headlines and books and peer-reviewed this and all of that, without ever actually having done my own research and opening up the whole, can of worms, if you will, to see really what's in there. We've been fed calories in, calories out, move more, eat less. We need fiber, we need vegetables, we need, macronutrients and carbs. And, there's 3 macronutrients we need. We need protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And the reality of it is there's only 2 that the human body absolutely needs, and that is fat and protein. We don't ever need a single carbohydrate to continue to live and procreate and have a long lasting, highly productive life. And then we have to also set aside our belief as to where these nutrients actually come from. Number three, third thing, be willing to plan and prep. If you're not willing to plan and prep, you are planning to set yourself up for failure in most cases. So first and foremost, you want to know what is carnivore and animal-based eating. There's a lot of philosophies behind that. And the one that's most important is the one that you are going to adhere to. So it's anything that comes from an animal, which includes eggs and dairy. Now, not everybody incorporates dairy into it, and a lot of that has to do with sensitivities to dairy or fat retention. Some people are sensitive to dairy, and some people, it causes them to retain weight. You'll have to test and try some things for yourself. In some circles, honey is considered part of animal-based eating because the bee, although it's an insect, it's still a living creature, and that factors in. So again, I'm not here to tell you which of those philosophies. I'm here to tell you that it's important that you know what is carnivore or animal-based. I highly recommend Shawn Baker's The Carnivore Diet, where he gets into a lot of this. I don't believe he eats honey, but he also doesn't tell anyone that they shouldn't. I don't believe that he eats a lot of dairy either, but he also doesn't tell anyone that they shouldn't. So it's important for you to understand what is carnivore and animal-based eating, know your plan, and then develop a prep and planning list from that. So have a food and grocery list ahead, plan 7 days out. So sit down and make your meal plan for the next 7 days, and then your grocery list from that, and then hit the grocery store, put your blinders on, only shop in the meat, dairy, and what's the third one? Meat, dairy, and I guess it would be like eggs, because those aren't considered dairy. So meat, dairy, and egg section of the grocery store. All right. And then pre-cook and plan as much as you can. Sometimes it helps, like I pre-cook bacon. I will cook a whole roast. I will cook different things like that. And then I have written into my food plan when during the week I'm going to be consuming those things. That's especially important if you work full time, or you have a super busy schedule, you have other families that you're going to be cooking or working around. It's super important that you have all of this plotted out, pre-planned, and then every day when you get up, you know exactly what the day consists of, you know when you're going to eat, what you're going to eat, and you know exactly where those ingredients are, so they're either prepared or readily accessible for you. And then part of that plan is having some snacks, whether it's beef sticks or jerky or something that's very carnivore based, hard-boiled eggs, different things like that, that we can use when we get into a pinch. Now, most pure carnivore does not involve snacking. Most pure carnivores will tell you they eat roughly 2 meals a day. Some people do the 1 meal a day, but most are centered around the 2 meal a day. Depending on your schedule, maybe you do shift work, or are a high intensity athlete or something like that, really high intensity workouts, you may need a third meal, or maybe that third meal is just kind of more snacky. That's where hard-boiled eggs, beef jerky, beef sticks. Again, you want to make sure that you're shopping quality ones that aren't filled with seed oils and sugars and different things like that. But that's part of planning and knowing what truly is carnivore and animal-based eating. So it is still important that you look at food labels, nutrition labels, make sure that you're not buying things with a lot of oils or different things injected into them. Be very particular with the dairy that you buy. If you can find raw dairy, that's even better, but make sure that it has almost no extra ingredients. You want 1, 2, possibly 3 ingredients on any of that at any given time. So it's still important that you shop labels, but that's a big part of planning and prepping so that you know what you're going to do. And then the other important part of it is the way that carnivore-based or animal-based eating works is that you eat only when you're hungry, first and foremost. So let your body be your guide. And I'm not talking about hunger in your mind. There's a difference, and I think you know what I'm talking about. Hunger in your mind is when you're bored and you get up and you go look in the cabinet, or you open up the refrigerator and you kind of stare in there because you're hungry in your mind. Hungry in your body is something totally different. So we're going to really focus on eating only when we're hungry, and at that point we eat to satiety. We let go of those old beliefs about, that we're only supposed to eat this much on a plate. And women, especially, I'm talking to you because we've been conditioned, little small meals and different things like that. So eat only when hungry and eat to satiety. And then number 4, you have to be confident in your reasons for doing this and resistant to criticism. Confident in your reasons for doing this and resistant to criticism. This might be the most difficult one of all of them. You have to be okay with criticism. You have to be okay with people questioning you. You have to be okay with people preaching to you, taunting you, guilting you, their opinions about what you're doing, how you're going to wreck your digestive system and you're going to wreck your blood panels and you're going to, be at a higher risk for heart disease, and animal protein, especially red meat, causes cancer and all these different things. So you have to really, truly be tough. And like I said, a willingness to set aside all of your old beliefs from number 2. That's going to be especially important to bring into number 4, because some people are going to share their opinions willingly. Some of them might be those who are closest to your family members and friends. And you're going to have to be willing to go against the grain, so to speak, and not eat any grains, and be willing to deal with other people's opinions. There are so many ideologies out there about diets, about food, about nutrition. And let's face it, it can be almost cult-like. Okay. That's where the morality and ethics people jump in. They like to tell you that it's immoral to eat animals and they want to guilt you and all of that. I recently got into a conversation with a guy on X who I don't know, who had responded to another post that we were both responding on. And in his bio, he had animal activists listed. And he was just not willing to in any way acknowledge that he wanted everybody to start eating lab grown meat. And I was like, the day that happens is the day I'm checking off the planet, because that just is not what my ancestors did. And I even said to him, what is your belief about how you and I are even here talking, since we evolved here after all these years with our early ancestors, eating animal-based and almost purely animal-based, and certainly eating local and seasonally and all the rest of this, and that they wouldn't have eaten anything grown in a lab. And then he dove into some conversation about, I'm saying it's okay to be a cannibal. It's like, cannibal and carnivore are not the same things. And I even said, I'm not even going to touch that one. I have no idea where that comment came from, but I'm kind of done here. And I don't like to argue with people on social media. I really thought I was just having kind of a fun, friendly debate with him and just asking some open-ended questions to see where he would come at. And he showed me who he was by bringing up cannibalism. So there you go. So again, you have to be really willing to either stay quiet or have some calm ways of coming back when people want to guilt you or talk about ethics and morality and all the rest of it. You know what? I'm here to tell you, I am not a fan of factory farms and, the factory production and mass production and slaughter of animals or any of that. I do buy mostly pasture raised, regenerative farming, and I believe in nature and the circle of life and how all of that works. And, I even said to someone the other day, well, try to talk a lion out of what he's going to eat for dinner and see how well that works out for you. It's the same thing here. Nature was based on, certain things coming and going. And as long as we do it in a kind, ethical way that is nature-based, that's okay with me. And I can live with the guilt of something like that. So ultimately, I think it's important to be curious about what your body is capable of, to engage in optimal techniques for living and for longevity and truly staying healthy on this beautiful earth where we all coexist. So what have you experienced? What do you fear about possibly delving into this lifestyle? Drop me a comment below, give me a like, subscribe to the channel. I'm Jackie Elmer. Grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com, and I look forward to seeing you on this next video. Have a great day.